Welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering people through storytelling and education. I am so excited about today's episode. It is all about joy, and I thought that it was just really fitting since this is Thanksgiving week. And at least in our household, we just try to focus on things that we can be grateful for. And the more that we've been focusing on that this month, Vito and I have set up a gratitude jar that we've been writing something in every single day that we are grateful for and just dropping it in there that we're going to read at the end of the month. And just doing that has cultivated some joy because it makes you stop, reflect what you're grateful for, and kind of bring you into that present moment. So it's been really good, and I'm excited. I have a conversation with Radha, and she is just such an amazing woman. She's like so accomplished. She's the co-founder of Thinks. She toured with Oprah. All these things that I didn't know until after. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do an episode on joy. Like scheduled for her to come on the podcast. Then I started researching her more, and I was like, holy crap, this woman has done a lot. And this episode was just something that I really needed to hear. I feel like since we recorded a few weeks ago, it has made a difference. Like I haven't even started. She'll talk about it in her Daybreakers thing that she has that helps people do practices for joy every single day. And I haven't even started it yet, but just having the conversation with her, I've been so much more aware of joy in my life and just had a small attitude shift because I feel like I went from like this pregnancy feeling kind of crappy, feeling like a lot of things were getting on top of me, and really kind of having a mental shift to the joy in the everyday, the joy in the small things. I know that I said before, like I felt like I was just kind of living Groundhog Day. And so kind of taking the mundane and making it purposeful and intentional and finding gratitude, not like, oh, just the same thing every single day. It's like, no, I love that I get to care for my family. I love that, that my vessel was chosen to carry this baby, and just really trying to find the joy. And I can honestly say, like a couple weeks ago, was the first time that I started to really feel excited in this pregnancy. I feel like this pregnancy has been really rough. It's been really, I don't know, hard for me to even feel like I'm pregnant. I definitely feel pregnant because I have physical symptoms of pregnancy, but just really no connection. I think just still healing from the miscarriage, and just still thinking that it might not stick. I'm 25 weeks now and way over halfway and still like waiting for the ball to drop. Like, oh, well, I don't even know if I'm actually going to have this baby type of thing. And a couple of weeks ago was the first time I really started being excited, that I started feeling the baby kick, which I think was huge. And just kind of having that mental attitude shift of looking for the joy and being grateful for this pregnancy, and not focusing on the things that maybe aren't going right this time around. Not that like things aren't going right. It's just I'm dealing with a lot more. I've had like really bad sciatica issues, like where my leg will just give out on me, and lower back pain and migraines and things like that this pregnancy that I didn't deal with the last, and having a 1-year-old and having that isn't really fun. And not just focusing on like the things that suck about it, but the things that are good about it and fun about it. Since I have been taking magnesium consistently, every night, my headaches have gotten a lot better. I also go to the chiropractor every 2 weeks. So I think between the combination of those, it's been a lot better. I did a post on my Instagram about magnesium and the benefits in pregnancy. It helps with, in the first trimester, it helps with if you're dealing with constipation. It can help with morning sickness. It helps with leg cramps, aches and pains, headaches, insomnia. There's tons and tons of benefits that magnesium can help in pregnancy, but you do kind of have to dose it appropriately. Like if you're just starting out taking a magnesium supplement, don't do the full scoop because that can give you diarrhea. It can affect you maybe in ways you're not expecting. So I always tell people to kind of start with a little bit and then see how your body reacts and then add a little more. Or you can also do Epsom salt baths. That's a great way for your body to absorb magnesium. Our skin's our largest organ, absorbs everything we put on it. A nice Epsom salt bath is really relaxing. So since I've been doing that, the headaches have gotten so much better, which has just made such a difference. And like I said, just kind of having these little mental shifts, finding what I'm grateful for every single day and writing it down, and just being more intentional about noticing the joy in my life, like stopping in the moment and being like, wow, like when Jovi laughs, this brings me so much joy. And, you know, like when we're spending time together as a family, this brings me so much joy, and just really trying to be present with it. So I'm really excited to try out her Radha's Daybreaker to just kind of bring that a little bit deeper. It's something I've definitely been searching for. And in this podcast, you're probably going to hear me cry. I'm pretty sure I cried during it. And it is explicit. There is a moment past the halfway mark where there are some F-bombs dropped. And I just left them in there because it's kind of driving a point that she's talking about. So, so yeah. Also, I'll talk more about it at the end. I'll let you listen to the podcast, then let you know how I've kind of put some of the practices that she said like into play. So yeah, I'm super excited for you guys to hear this episode. I hope that you this week, however, you view Thanksgiving, whether you celebrate it or not, just that you're taking time to be grateful, be present with your family, and also to recognize the history of it. It wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. I encourage you to go back to the episode a couple years ago where Kelly Wolf came on and we talked about the Indigenous Peoples Month and some of the history there. It was really good. And also the midwife that came on that also talked about Indigenous women in the birthing community and problems that they face, and just taking time to recognize that the land that you're on is not our own, and there were people here before us, and it's just nice to recognize that, maybe read up on some history of where you live, take time to just recognize that people died before us, and everything in our life right now might just seem so convenient, and you just go about your day not ever thinking that people had communities and tribes and things set up here before we ever lived here. So just taking a moment to recognize that is also important. All right, we are going to dive into this episode. I'm super excited for you to hear it. All right, everyone, I'm super excited about today's podcast. I have Radha Agrawal on, and I was reading her bio and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is fantastic. She is the co-founder and CEO of Daybreaker, which is the early morning dance and wellness movement in 30 cities and on 5 continents, which I'm surprised I've never heard of this because I was looking it up and I was like, this is freaking amazing. Like, how have I not heard of this? As someone who believes in dance parties. And she believes that as citizens of the world, we can all have the responsibility for uplifting our community, and is passionate about empowering people from all walks of life to be their best self. Another interesting fact about you, though, is that you're the co-founder and co-inventor of Thinks, which I'm a huge fan of, which I also talk about in like my postpartum journey. So I used them before. And then I was one of those people who got my period back at 12 weeks, although I was like exclusively breastfeeding. And I just absolutely loved my Thinks. They're amazing. So that's awesome that you're just a part of all these different things.
Thank you. I think dance unlocks a lot of invention and creativity. And so keep dancing.
Yeah. I actually went to, it was 2013. I just left the country for like 6 months and traveled all over. And I ended up in Bali. And where I was at there was a yoga barn that had an ecstatic dance night. And I had never been to anything like that before. And it was so amazing. You just met with these people and just moved however you felt. And it was so freeing and it was so amazing. I'm trying to think how many years, that was on my 27th birthday. Yeah, it was on my birthday. I was by myself and I was like, why do we not have these like where I live? Like, this is the most amazing thing. And everyone's just like closing their eyes and feeling the music. And it was just, there was just something so amazing about it. So I agree. Dance is amazing. But I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into all of this.
Yeah, I think that all of us are in pursuit of two things, belonging and joy, right? I think as humans, we want to belong. We want to feel that exhale of I'm home in our community. And we also want to be happy. And I sort of talk about joy and happiness differently, but I think those are the two pursuits that I've realized is sort of the foundation of the human experience across the board, across the world. And so as I've built, both Thinks and Daybreaker and built sort of my entrepreneurial journey, it's always come back to these two kind of North Stars. And I think that's really some of the most important things for us to talk about today, but also spend our time thinking about is what is our path to belonging? Are we deeply in a state of belonging right now in our community, in ourselves, with our partner, with our friendships, in our work environment, with the community at large? Like, how do we belong in those spaces and places? And how are we orienting our lives to joy? How are we actually practicing joy? And so I think I spent most of my life thinking about these two things, and Daybreaker really came from, so Daybreaker is this early morning dance party. We started as sort of a social experiment in 2013, almost 8 years ago now, really with an invitation to help people come home to their self-expression. You talk about ecstatic dance, like very much in that same way. We wanted to really create a sober environment for people to really dance their faces off and close their eyes, self-express, find friends, find community at a time of day when we're the most alive and the most optimistic, which is the morning. So much of the dance world and celebratory world happens at night. And because we're tired, we end up taking alcohol or substances or hop ourselves up on caffeine or whatever to be able to stay up. But our idea was, can we actually reimagine the morning to be a time of celebration, a time of dance, a time of joy, a time of belonging and community, instead of being alone in our earbuds on a treadmill at a gym or in our beds, So that was really the genesis of Daybreaker. And then Thinks, came from, again, wanting to really belong to the professional world. And, the world for women in education and profession is so mitigated by our period. 100 million girls drop out of school every year around the world because of their periods. And also as a woman in the developing world, even here in New York City, I would have to get up and run out of meetings because I'm an Asian heavy bleeder, and it was not exactly a sort of the world of entrepreneurship and business wasn't well set up for women, especially since menstruation management products were developed by men. So wanted to create a product that was designed and created for women that could help us belong to our bodies more, that could help us feel sexy wearing beautiful underwear, and give women the opportunity to stay in school, stay in their work environment. My other sister is a surgeon at Johns Hopkins, and she does 15-hour surgeries, and she would have to get up. You don't want to get up from surgery, or she couldn't get up from surgery, so she would bleed through her underwear. It was just like a whole, things that we don't think about as working women that we have to deal with. And so to belong to ourselves, to orient to joy in every environment, whether it's fashion, whether it's on the dance floor, has, I guess, been the DNA of my entire kind of why, my raison d'etre, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so amazing. We're going to take a break from this episode to talk about taking control of our mental health. You all know that I'm a big fan of BetterHelp, and I just want to share them with you again because it is so important to have no shame and to feel empowered to take control of your mental health. It doesn't mean that you are really depressed in order to get counseling. It doesn't mean that it's not the same cliches that maybe were there in the past. And maybe you are really depressed, and that's okay. Talking to somebody can help. And the thing that I love about BetterHelp is that you get to connect in a safe and private online environment that's convenient. They help pair you with the right counselor, and you can send a message to them at any time and get timely and thoughtful responses. BetterHelp, they're committed to a great therapeutic match for you so that they make it easy and free to change counselors if you ever need. And everything you share is always confidential. It's convenient, professional, affordable, and you can check out the testimonials that are daily on their site. And in fact, so many people are using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states right now. Start living your best life today by going to betterhelp.com/mamas to get 10% off your first month. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. You said a lot of things that I feel like spoke to me. Because you talked about community, but also living out your joy. So I feel like a lot of people don't live out their joy. If you ask them, do you have joy in their life? They're like, well, yeah, I have joy in my life, or yeah, I'm happy. But what does that look like, kind of saying like, yeah, I have joy in my life, but actually like actively living out joy? What's the difference?
Totally. Beautiful question. So I think people have tasted joy in kind of peak life moments, like you at a wedding, or you're at a concert, or, you're at a birthday, party for yourself, whatever. There's peak life moments that happen where you're like, whoa, this is what joy feels like. And in the middle of that, what? You're just living kind of a sleepwalky kind of, yeah, I'm okay. I'm moving through life. I'm waiting for that next sort of like moment to pop into that ecstasy, maybe once a year or once, every couple of years. And now I'm happy. That's fine. But what we have found is that, we go to school to learn how to read, how to write, how to become professionals. We go to, kind of apps for romantic relationships, and we really curate our romantic lives. But rarely are we actually practicing how to be joyful. We rarely actually sit down and think about who are our friends in our community that we want to spend our time with. What are the qualities we're looking for in a friendship? The way we write down what we want in a job, or what we want in a romantic partner. So we do this for all of these parts of our lives. But the most important, what are our friendships like? What is our joy like? We don't actually practice it, nor do we get intentional about it. So I spent the last, 8 years with Daybreaker building an environment to help people find belonging and experience joy without substances. But then during COVID, I found that, when we had to shut down all of our events and we couldn't gather anymore, I started getting all these emails from friends who were sharing with me that their siblings were committing suicide, that they were having deep anxiety and depression. And there was all these, major kind of a huge pandemic of joy that was happening, a lack of joy, a deep unhappiness, a deep loneliness, a deep level of anxiety and depression for everyone across the board, whether you're a mother at home with your kid, whether you were, a professional no longer allowed to be at your office. It just didn't, if you were single, at home alone, or you're in a couple on top of each other, there was nowhere to practice how to be happy, how to be joyful. So we created the first platform to practice joy. And basically the way we practice yoga, the way we practice meditation, these are states and practices that are part of our joy practice for sure, but it also helps us come to states of presence. But to move from states of, okay, I'm no longer traumatized, to now I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling present, I've done my meditation, I've done my yoga, I feel good in my body. how do we now graduate to states of ecstasy, states of joy, states of like deep happiness? And that's really what I'm interested in helping people get to, is like, I did the therapy, I read the books, I read the things, I'm feeling okay now. I'm no longer in my trauma story, but now I don't even know where to go. I have no idea where to begin. So we built the first platform called Daybreaker Plus, which is an online community space where we've filmed over 250 joy practices from the top practitioners around the world to really give people a place to come and practice how to be happy, how to be joyful, to have a place to actually create a habit around making joy part of your daily orientation. And so we call them microdoses, so 11-minute microdoses, 22 minutes, 33 and 44-minute heroic doses. So we kind of took a nod from the psychedelic world just because we think it's interesting that there's so much push to the psychedelic world, but we already have these happy neurochemicals inside of our brains, right? So part of our joy practice is teaching people how to unleash their own natural neurochemistry, what I call your dose, your dopamine, your oxytocin, your serotonin, and your endorphins, right? Like we have the superpowers in our brains already. We don't need substances to help them unlock, right? Yes, there can be extra things that we'll discover about ourselves, but if we learn how to train our brains, train our brain and bodies to unlock our happy neurochemicals naturally, we can achieve the same states of MDMA, of what ketamine therapy, all the different therapies do for you through our breath and visualization, through dance, through movement, through forest bathing, through community joy practices, through eye gazing practices. There's so many ways, through laughter, yoga, through sing-along practices. There's so many ways to achieve states of ecstatic joy that you don't necessarily need to be on drugs to do that. And so the whole idea of Daybreaker Plus and our joy practice is to help people unlock joy every day in as little as 11 minutes. And to do it in a community to hold their hand, because so often it's such an alone individual journey. And we want to give people a way to find an accountability community to help you stay accountable to your joy practice. So we're super proud of having launched this in beta about 5 months ago. And it's just been incredible to just see how people are staying committed to their joy practice, how they're taking our joy quiz that we developed with UC Berkeley Integrated Good Science Center to actually see where they are on their joy journey. We actually developed this 40-question joy quiz so that anyone can take it and actually figure out where they are on their joy journey, what neurochemicals in their brains they're deficient in, so that they can unlock their joy more effectively and have a personalized prescription for what joy practices they need to be in optimal joy. So we've just really thought about how to really personalize each and every person's experience, because we're all so different and we all need different things, right? So you, as an expecting mother, with a young baby, you might need less oxytocin practice. You're just getting so much of that in your cuddling with your baby, but you might need more endorphins, which is a release of euphoric kind of neurochemicals, which is what you get from sweating, from dancing, from moving your body, from that runner's high. You might need more dopamine from listening to music, from feeling a sense of accomplishment from doing it. Well, you might feel that already from being a mom, so you're fine there. But maybe more serotonin, a feeling of togetherness, a feeling of connectedness, a feeling of this is bigger than me, so there's a lot of different needs that you might have than I might have with a 2-year-old, living in New York City. So we really wanted to create something that became a habit-forming joy practice for anyone across all levels in their journey to joy.
Yeah, that's so cool. Again, I just feel like so many things came up for me when you said that. I'm going to try to not get emotional, but I might. Because I feel like, motherhood has completely transformed my life. Like, it's amazing. But before I was a mom, like I did tons of traveling. I did lots of walking barefoot in the park, looking at the full moon. Like, and Vegas was like also a much safer place to do that. Like the suburb of Vegas is in the top 10 safest cities in the United States. Then I moved to downtown Chicago, where my now husband, we were just dating at the time. He's like, you cannot go for a walk at midnight in the park by yourself. Like you can't. You can't. He's like, don't try to be brave. Don't try to be cool. Like, don't do it. Whereas in Vegas, I would do that all the time because it's like 110 degrees during the day. So you don't want to go during the day. So you go at the night. And I would do have full moon rituals and just do different things. And I just feel like I don't have any of that, and that I've lost so much. Like I used to just find joy in exploring new places. And then it was like everything changed with motherhood, but also becoming a mom during a pandemic, not having my community here, and all of that. So I feel like I'm just like lacking in so many, I'm like trying not to cry.
No.
I just feel like I'm lacking in so many of those areas. But I don't want to like say that I don't have joy. But I do. But like, I feel like everything you're saying is like speaking to me, because I'm like, oh, I want to force bathe. And
yes.
like have these like dance parties and do these things. But I know that I'm not the only person who feels this way. I know so many people who are listening, like motherhood completely changed their lives, or the pandemic, becoming a mom during the pandemic, or moving for your spouse's job or your partner's job or whatever it is. Or I know so many people that don't have family or their communities, or I feel like as you get older, like for me, I did date in Vegas, and then I found my husband who lived in Chicago, so right. Which he's totally worth it. He's so freaking amazing. And I feel like he basically is my community here.
Right. Which, by the way, is dangerous. Like, and I wrote a book called Belong, and please read it. I think you'll actually get a lot out of it. There's like 20 exercises in the book to call in your community, to write down what you're looking for, to really build it from scratch. But it's very dangerous because most people put their whole community in their partner and their spouse, and it puts so much pressure on the relationship that it actually isn't healthy in the long run. It's so important, especially as moms, who are so regimented with their schedule with their babies, to not be regimented in their schedule with their babies, to go and see friends and to say yes to social outings and to really be in community and to reach out and make friends. And I talk about this in my book, but there's about 7 inflection points in our lives, right? Like when we leave our home for the first time and go to college, when we graduate college and move to a new city, get a new job, when we, start a family and have a kid, we get married, divorce, like retirement. There's so many inflection points, and we're starting all over with new community and new life. When we move, right, for our spouses and all of that, there's moments, and it seems to, in our minds, as we get older, get harder and harder, but only because we've placed these limitations on ourselves because of all the labels that we've put on ourselves over the years. I'm an introvert. I'm socially anxious. I'm this, I'm that. We've placed all these labels on ourselves, which totally pigeonholes us from making friends like we used to when we were little kids with no labels for ourselves. So this is the moment for you, as a young mother, to throw all the labels aside, to sort of like start from scratch. And this is what I did when I turned 30 years old. When I looked myself in the mirror and I realized I didn't belong, and I spent my 20s sleepwalking through my life, and I looked myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, okay, I'm turning 30 now. Like who am I? Like what where do I belong? And I was single at the time. So my spouse was my twin sister. I had just my twin sister, and that was it really, of like my ride or die. And that was the moment I was like, wow, I've been focusing on my career, on my romantic kind of like dating life. But like, no, I need to really reprioritize community and belonging as number 1 on my list. And then everything else will follow from there. So that's what I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to do something very unorthodox. I'm going to make it number 1. I'm going to show up to everything that I want to show up for in my community. And I started writing down. So the first part of my book is all about going in, and it's all about sort of doing this internal journey work of like, who am I today? What are my values today? So my values in my 20s is different from my values today as a new mother. So that'll change. So you're going to have a lot of fun going through this book. You should definitely pick it up. Actually having moved to a new place as a new mother, like you'll get so much out of it. But the first exercise that I did in my own life that I also share in more detail in my book is writing down a 3-column list. And column 1 is, what are the qualities I'm looking for in a friend? Have you ever done that before?
No.
No, like none of us have done it, right? Like none of us have done that. We've been either too kind of embarrassed to do that. We've been too ashamed. There's so much ego. I'm too cute to write down what I'm looking for. Like they should be finding me. Or I'm too good, or I'm too embarrassed. Or there's so many things that we do to ourselves that we're like, okay, like why is there so much shame around writing down what we're looking for in a friend? So I did that. I put the shame aside. I just was like, screw it, I'm going to do this. And I wrote down all the qualities I'm looking for in a friend. I wanted friends who talked about ideas and not each other.
Yeah.
I wanted friends who were adventurous. I wanted friends who were family oriented. I wanted friends who loved to dance. I wanted friends who said yes to adventure. I wanted friends who were still moms who wanted to have a fit, wanted to be fit and go to the gym with me. I wanted friends who loved festivals. Like I wanted friends who were entrepreneurs and innovators. So I wrote all of this down in column 1, right? Column 2 was, what are the qualities I don't want in a friend? I don't want negative Nellies. I don't want, people who talk badly about each other. I don't want friends who were shoulder shruggers or like, nah, I'll do that. Okay, whatever. I didn't want friends, right? So I wrote down all of those things. I didn't want friends that were grandfathered in because I knew them for 20 years plus, but they were bringing me down every time I talk on the phone. Write that down, right? And really be honest with yourself. And then column 3, maybe the most important column, was, what are the qualities that I need to embody in order to attract the friends that I want? So for me, I need to be less of like, oh, I'm a mom making excuses. I'm too tired. I'm going to cancel. I have a thing. My husband, my kid needs me, whatever. Like I had so many of those excuses when I first became a mom. And then I was like, Radha, no, and I just stopped. So that was like fast forwarded to, having a mom, having kids. But like at 30, I was like, I had to be less of a canceller. I had to be less judgmental. I had to be less, triple booker or whatever. And that intentionality of writing it down was the beginning of this whole new life for me. And, in doing that, then I did my VIA, which is another exercise, like values, interests, and abilities. What are your values today? What are your interests today? And what are you good at as it relates to what you can bring to your community? What are your abilities? For me, I'm great at gathering people. I'm great at hosting. I'm great at, designing experiences. Maybe you're great at cooking. Maybe you're great at asking good questions. Maybe you're great at taking out the trash. Maybe you're good at decorating. Maybe you're good at bringing instruments, musical instruments. Maybe you're good at singing. Like everyone has something they can bring to a community, but they hide their abilities because they're maybe shy to bring that in. So really brag about yourself in that exercise. And I do that full exercise in my book. And so once you kind of do all of this work internally, then you're ready to go out and make your friends and build your community by exploring, participating, finding your outer core, and then your inner core, which I call your 4 phases of community, which is so important. That's the foundation of joy. If you don't have a community, you cannot be joyful. I actually rewrote Maslow's hierarchy of needs because Maslow wrote it in 1943, which is well before technology, well before a lot was discovered around the importance of belonging, all of this. So I rewrote Maslow's hierarchy and moved belonging into the basic human needs. And I replaced self-actualization at the top of his pyramid to joy. And when we start from a base of the pyramid of belonging, I find my tribe, I prioritize community. I feel, oh my God, I have friends, I have community. They are calling me. I'm calling them. We're making plans. Then finding that joy at the top of the pyramid is so much easier and so much more fun to share it with other people, right? Individual joy and collective joy. There's 2 types of joy. There's individual internal joy, and then there's collective joy, which is an ecstasy that we can never experience alone. Humans are naturally spectacularly social. We cannot survive or thrive without friends or community. And that collective euphoric joy that we feel in community, we cannot ever feel alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I definitely haven't been like intentional about finding friends since I've lived here for about 4 years. And then I have all the excuses, right? Like I moved here, I worked 2 jobs, I didn't have time. And then I got married and then we got pregnant shortly after and then whatever. So I definitely cling to excuses, especially when I don't want to be social. And
you have to force yourself sometimes.
I know.
You do.
Sometimes it's hard though. Like I don't want to get ready.
One good conversation. I know, but you can, whatever, you're beautiful. You can wear whatever you want. You can wear a sack of potatoes. You'll still be great.
I have makeup on today though, because I have to record an Instagram ad after this. So that's the only reason why.
Well, I really think that it's so easy to make excuses anytime. And I think that it's not the getting ready that it is. It's just getting out the door and showing up to things. I mean, like, my brother-in-law and I talk about this, like one conversation like this one we're having right now can change the course of your life. Mm-hmm. So one good conversation that you might have when you go out that night at a party or an event or a thing that you're invited, whatever, or that you invite people to, can change the course of your life. And so never count those out. And it's not about having FOMO, right? Like it's not about fear of missing out. I talk about JOMO in my book, the joy of missing out, actually, and really finding that tribe and feeling that joy of being exactly where you are supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But there is an isolation that we can often make comfortable that is actually bad for us,
right?
And does not. And like you have to just do that kind of quiet self audit. Like, am I actually making excuses for myself, or am I living in my purest ecstasy and joy that I know that I can have if I just changed my life or tried something different or said yes to something new or put my fear out the way and put my courage on and showed the F up, mm-hmm. And I call that in my book FYFs. And you can bleep this out, but FYFs is a very fancy term, which I call fuck yeah friends.
Yeah.
And like you want to really you want to be a fuck yeah friend. I only want, when you become an FYF, when you're like, F yeah, I'll try this, F yeah, I'll go to that, F yeah, I'll wake up and dance at sunrise and go to a sober dance party on a weekday morning, F yeah, I'll wear underwear I can bleed in even if I've never done that before. Like, mm-hmm. like you want to find those F yeah friends, FYFs, and be one yourself, because when you have that level of attitude and show upness mentality, A, you will have friends for life, and B, you will have the right friends for life. You will attract the right friends for you, because in my 20s, I attracted the wrong friends because I emitted an energy of myself that was more insecure, that was like more kind of like transactional, like living in New York City. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? It was like very that type of friendships I put out. So everyone that I attracted was a transactional relationship rather than one that was coming from a place of real love, real belonging, real values alignment, So you just never know, like one conversation can change the course of your life. And so don't ever sleep on that.
Yeah. 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 I feel like I had that in Vegas, and that's why it's been so hard. Like I just went back to Vegas 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't seen my friends in 2.5 years because of COVID. And it was like so amazing. I told my husband, I'm like, I feel like my cup is full again coming home, just even being there for a couple days, because I just feel like they're my people, like you, right, I feel like I
belong. But proximity is so important. Yes, right. It's great to have friends around the world, but you need friends that you can see every week, every other day. Like you want friends and a thriving community in the proximity of where you live.
Right.
And so you can't live for those next calendar dates of flying somewhere. Like to cultivate your own community where you live is so critical to day-to-day joy and day-to-day belonging. And I can't express the importance of that more. And looking, and I always say it's like, yes, we can live for the past, but we can also live for the present and future. You now live in the suburbs of Chicago. You can do it again, and you can create it again. It's going to be bigger, better, stronger, because you're older, wiser, smarter, and you have mama energy now, and you can create something even more magical, even more special with this new intentionality, especially when you do the exercises in my book and you're able to really call in the types of community that will really give you wings or will give you a sense of inspiration. Because You want friends who inspire you.
Right.
You don't want just friends who feel comfy and gushy. And you want friends who, yes, you want friends who make you feel a sense of home and belonging. And you also want friends who are going to take you to the stars, right, in life. And so you need both. And so I really feel like we got one life to live, and to really make it count. You want to look forward. You want to live in the present. You want to really make your home where you are with your family right now, your space where you belong.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of your book again?
It's called Belong.
Belong. Okay. I got to write it down.
Belong.
Well, that's like a conversation though that I've had with my husband too, is like, I think because I felt like I had so much of that in Vegas, that's also been my excuse for like not doing it here. Cause I'm like, I've compared a lot of like, you know, like my friends in Vegas would do this.
It's not what I use. I can hear that. You're like, well, in Vegas, it was like this.
Right. Oh, totally.
And here it's like
my
this.
friends would get weird with me, or they'd do whatever with me. I'd be like, hey, do you want to go do a moonlight hike, whatever? And they're like, yeah, for sure. And then I'd be like, oh, do you want to go to Easter at this Greek Orthodox church where they do this candle lighting? And they're like, yeah, like, it's like, you have like so much of everything.
I'm going to introduce you to the Daybreaker community in Chicago. Okay. We have like 10,000 community members in Chicago who are amazing. And we're relaunching in Chicago as well. You're going to make so many of these types of friends there, first of all. And second of all, like I'll give you a free month on me to Daybreaker Plus, which is our online community. So you can start practicing joy every day. And I want to offer it actually to your listeners as well, because I think moms, or every mom who's listening to this podcast right now, can use a little oomph in the buttocks to get up and into the joy practice. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna after this call, let me make sure to give you a code to give all your mamas who are listening a 1 month free to Daybreaker Plus, which has hundreds of joy practices on it, from forest bathing to visualizations to sound bowls to moonlight kind of visualization ritual practices to all kinds of things that you'll fill your cup with. And we have an accountability community where we get on Zoom once a month and we do breakout rooms and everyone shares what they experience. And it's so wonderful to meet a community there, so that when you come offline to Chicago Daybreaker, you'll also meet people there. But we have Daybreakers in 30 cities around the world. But if you're not in your city, you can practice with us online too. But I really feel like from what you're saying, as someone who loves to dance, someone who loves this type of thing, you'll just love our community. And when I come out to Chicago in the spring, I'll invite you as well, and we'll meet in person and we can high five as well.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I'm definitely going to try it out, and I really encourage the listeners to too, because I'm sure there's like a lot of people too that are listening. They're like, that's not my thing. I don't dance naked in the forest. And it's like, you don't have to.
It's not naked. It's not, well, forest bathing is not a naked forest.
No, I know, but that's probably what people are like envisioning.
Totally. Forest bathing is actually a very kind of traditional Japanese practice that was created in Japan. And there's a lot of science, like hundreds of science-backed studies that talk about sort of slow walking aimlessly in nature under a canopy of trees and deeply breathing in and out. So it's not like a hike where you're like quickly walking and trying to get from point A to point B, but like slowly meandering aimlessly without a destination, breathing deeply under a canopy of trees. Like that's sort of the DNA of forest bathing, of just like being amongst and present to the trees. And the trees have all these cancer-fighting agents called phytoncides inside that the trees breathe out like our CO2, like their CO2. When we actually breathe in these phytoncides that trees give off, we're actually strengthening our cellular structures and helping us fight cancer and fight cancer-causing agents as well. So it's a really powerful mind-body practice that is a really, really special joy practice. Mm-hmm. And to do it also in community with friends, quietly walking together in nature also is a beautiful, like no one's talking, but everyone's walking silently together. There's an energy about that is also very, very beautiful. So mm-hmm. I highly encourage listeners to go out and do that too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I encourage everyone to definitely check it out.
And I have a series of forest bathing classes that I lead, where the video is me in nature, and I invite you to to meet me in nature with your phone. And then at the beginning of the hike, it's a 5-7 minute video. You watch it. I kind of give you a guidance of how to walk through nature. And then you turn it off, put your phone away, and then you take this beautiful walk in nature. But I have a whole series of 5 or 6 nature walks on the platform. We call them awe walks, to kind of find states of awe. And that's on the platform as well. So you'd love it. I highly encourage you to do that, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I will for sure. I want to touch on, before we wrap up, kind of motherhood into all of this, because I feel like there's so much in the motherhood community. I feel like since being a part of it, there's definitely been a part of me that maybe has compared at times. And I really believe that comparison is a thief of joy. But also the talk of how hard it is, which is completely valid. Motherhood rocks your world. But I feel like there's almost less talk of the joy in it. So I'd love for you to kind of like speak to that. 'Cause it's like, we can compare and be like, yeah, my kid was up 3 times last night. Oh, really? My kid was up 4 times last night. I haven't slept in 2 years, and it's kind of this drag of, this season of life is challenging. It's hard. It's different. I'm trying to not use the word hard as much. My husband was like, you use the word hard a lot. I'm like, okay, let's try to, it's different, right?
I actually think that the word hard and the word anxious, I'm so anxious, I think is also a very overused word. And words carry energy, and energy lives in your cells, And so, I think step 1 as moms is to really, again, like start practicing joy, start orienting your mindset to the joy of it. We spent our whole lives wanting babies. We spent our whole lives hunting for a husband, wanting a baby. And now we have a baby. Now we're complaining about it. It just doesn't make any sense. And so let's keep reminding ourselves of the why. We wanted this. This was we were excited about the house, the bed, and of course, this is our moment to actually realize the construct of this worldview that society has placed on us as women, both to push us down, to keep us in the home and the kitchen, but also to relegate us to this sort of like negative self-talk of like, oh, I'm just a housewife, or, oh, I have to do it so hard. We can do it all. And I have oriented myself to this feeling of like, when I'm up with my daughter at night, I think, and it's like hard. And yes, I have moments. I've actually filmed moments of me crying in the bathtub because I want to remember the pain and suffering of it. Because so much of it is also so joyous and beautiful. And I think that we have to keep reminding ourselves that we chose this. This was our choice. And maybe society places choice on us because we thought that this is what society wanted of us as women, to be married off as quickly as possible, have kids as quickly as possible. That's what success meant as a woman. But we can actually throw all that out the window, which is what, for me as a disruptor, I consider myself a disruptor. My twin sister, Mickey, wrote a book called Disrupt Her. And we talk about ourselves as being like, we invented underwear so that we can actually feel sexy on our periods. And we don't have to live, with our vaginas plugged with a male invented thing, We can dance in the sunrise with our babies because I bring my daughter to every Daybreaker because Daybreaker is sober. So there's no alcohol. So anybody can come. So lots of now moms bring their kid. We're already up with our kids at sunrise anyway. So let's bring the kids and dance our faces off. Yes, it's extra work to put our kid in a baby Bjorn and put him in a stroller. But I do that work because I'm not going to change my life and put my kid on a schedule. So I have lived my life not on a schedule. My kid she goes to bed at a certain time. She wakes up at a certain time. She has a nap at sort of around a certain time. But I will put her on my lap, and I've she went to 43 cities and 18 countries in her first year of life with me. I went on tour with Oprah when she was less than 1 year old, and I was on stage opening for Oprah with Soleil in the background, running backstage to breastfeed her as soon as I got off stage. And it was an amazing experience. And I never said, oh my God, this is so hard. I found it to be exhilarating. I found it it made me feel even more powerful as a mama to be able to do it all. And I think we have to stop making it hard and to remember that we as women are the only humans that can make life. We can do anything we want. It's just about us saying yes to keep living our individual life and not just allowing motherhood to take over. And I think I've seen so many of my girlfriends, I've lost them to motherhood. Like, it's like, I'll try to go meet my girlfriend at a park and I get there and she's like, oh, it's his nap time. And I'm like, I haven't seen you, but can't you just hang out for 15 more minutes? And like, we can catch up on life and high five and hug and like talk about whatever is going on in her life. But like, no, she has to like run out of there to go home and be with her kid. And they're just like too strict. And like, that's just the American way. Like, we have made it a strict American. Europeans, South Americans, Africans, Asian, we raise children differently. And it's really up to us as leaders in the mama community, or as like having a voice in the mama's community, and everyone listening who is a leader in their community, to go out there and say, we can do mamahood differently. And this has been a construct that has given to us by the masculine patriarchy. We need to get married. We need to get babies. We need to be thrown in the kitchen. We need to do, that's not the life that we are destined for. And it takes extra courage for us to go and do something differently. And so I think that this is the moment, this is the conversation, this is the one conversation that will change our lives forever. That was told to me by a matriarch in my life that was like, this is not going to be you when you become a mother. And now I'm sharing with you and all the mamas listening. So
yeah, I love that. And it is true. Like, when you look at other cultures, they aren't as scheduled as ours. I think that routine can be great, but schedules can be super rigid.
For the mothers, the mothers.
Right. And one thing that I've already kind of prepped myself for, because the temperatures just dropped here in Chicago. And last winter, I mean, my baby was just like a peanut, and I love winter. I actually, when I was pregnant, I would take my dog out on walks in 20-degree weather. I did not care. And this year I'm like, you know what? We are going to get outside every single day, because when you look at the families in Norway, they do that with their kids. They bundle them up. They go outside every single day. Or even there's this school in Montana that for like, it's like a preschool kindergarten where it's an outdoor school. So even in the winter, they're outside. And I'm like, I can do this. Like, it's this excuse of like, it's too cold. I don't know how to dress my baby. I don't whatever. And I'm like, then freaking figure it out. Like, get outside every single day, because that, I know for me, is one thing that makes a difference, is when I take my dog and my daughter outside every day. Because there have been a lot of days where I haven't even left my house. And that's when I start getting into a hole. And
of course.
So I'm like, and I remind myself, I'm like, women have been doing this for thousands of years before me.
Right.
Like, I know I keep saying that it's hard.
Sacagawea brought Lewis and Carroll to the West Coast of America, like literally took them through the entire country from the East to the West Coast with a baby. I think she delivered the baby while she was pregnant, delivered the baby on the path, and took these two dudes who took all the credit for being the explorers of the West. But it was the woman who did that. And if a woman can do that, we can do anything, right? Yeah. So it really is up to us to stop making these excuses, to practice joy, to find belonging through our female friendships, not live in comparison. And when we practice joy, we actually no longer live in comparison. We live in abundance, right? Mindset. So that's why, like, when I practice joy every day, which I do a one-song dance party. I do a Japanese calisthenic. I do a forest bathing. I dance with my daughter. There's so many things that I do every day on the platform, right? Daybreaker Plus, which everyone again is invited to. It just changes it changes your sort of North Star of like, oh, right, I can orient to joy. I can orient to possibility and abundance. I don't have to orient to, oh, my life is so hard. My life is so, I gave it up to my kids. Like, it's no longer mine. My life is still very much mine. You know, I have a community of friends who raise my kid with me. And that's the other thing. It's like she knows 20 or 30 people by first name who she considers her aunts and her uncles. because they're always at my house. They're always around. I give my daughter to my friends all the time for the weekends when I go away with my husband, or I go to a festival weekend or whatever. And I just leave her with them without the fear of what's going to happen. Is she going to, I'm just like trusting that my community's got my back, like we all used to back when we raised our kids in villages. And I raised my kid like we're in a village. And I don't have that fear of like, oh, I'm abandoning my kid. I'm a bad mom. I have to be with her 24/7. It's actually unhealthy for a kid to be around their parent 24/7. It's unhealthy for the mom. It's unhealthy for the kid. It's codependent. It's bad. So it's so important for parents, for their own happiness, their own belonging, their own joy, to find their tribe, to sick their kids on the tribe and go off on their own with their husband and have lots of sex and have a lot of fun and party with their friends without the kids around. It's so important to invest in your own joy and do that. And I will say that again and again. And when I did that in my own life, I continue to feel such euphoria. And my daughter is the happiest kid on the planet. She doesn't feel abandoned, but she feels so courageous and independent and joyful. And it's because I'm not holding on tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd love to just touch on really quick before we wrap up too, because, you've mentioned a few times that with the Daybreaker dance, like they're sober events. And one big thing kind of with the mom culture is like the wine culture too, of like, I'm a mom, I need a glass of wine. Like I'm a mom, it's time for me to drink. My glass of wine is double the size of yours, right, type of thing. And I believe it's fine to have a glass of wine. But I do think that there's, damage in the way that it's talked about. Again, kind of that motherhood leads you to drink.
We don't need wine, ladies. We don't need it. We got our dose. We got our dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. We already got all of our superpowers in our brains. We just have to learn how to unleash them. We're probably using 0.1% of those neurochemicals in our brain. Imagine if we got even 10% of our happy neurochemicals out and we learned how to unleash them just through breath work, through joy practice, through community practice, through just different singing. Like literally singing can do this, right? There's so many practices that you can do that can get you the euphoria without damaging your liver and without that hangover the next day. I know for me, I can't. I mean, alcohol and me. I just stopped when I was in my 30s. I just stopped drinking because I just was like, I can't. I want to live a long time, and I just and there's no judgment, but I just feel like we can do this, ladies. We can dance. We can find joy in other ways. Yes, I clink glasses with my friends every once in a while. Totally, it's fun. It's great, and let's practice. Let's practice it being in joy without it. Let's practice. That's why I started Daybreaker, because I wanted to break the codependence between dancing and having fun and being effed up, being messed up. Yeah. Because like every time you'd go to a party, it's like, oh, what drug is someone doing? What alcohol is someone doing? It was just like, there was no, there's nothing like that. Oh, there's you.
Oh my gosh. Hi. Oh my gosh. Hi. You are so cute.
You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
Say,
hi.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
Wow.
Look at Mom.
Is that Sue? Thank you. Well, listen, we're doing a podcast right now. You want to say hi, everyone?
Hi, everyone.
I love you.
Love you.
I miss
you.
blowing them kisses. Blowing you kisses.
Oh my gosh.
Say
so cute.
Anyway, so
yeah, I agree. Like we can do it without the alcohol too. I think that it's, I mean, there is like, yeah, the wine culture. And like I said, if you want to have a glass of wine, that's fine. But I think that it's like you need it to survive this season of life that's really damaging.
Totally. I feel like, again, like there's a time for intentional celebration, right? But when we start using kind of spirits and substances as a day-to-day coping activity. And it's no longer an intentional celebration of like, it's someone's birthday or it's a week, it's a weekend experience, or it's like a special occasion, or we're celebrating something that feels like intentional, to clink a glass around. If it's just like every day a coping mechanism, that's when it becomes dangerous, right? Mm-hmm. So I do believe there's a celebratory, intentional time for spirits and moments of getting outside of our head and into states of other states. But I also feel like again, the day-to-day becomes dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Radha, so much for coming on. I know I got a lot out of this. I need to learn how to tap into that joy in my brain, because I don't think that I'm a miserable person at all, but I know that I'm not living my full joyful potential. And so this conversation has just been so awesome. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your energy and your time and your wisdom with us. And I'd love for you to let everybody know where they can find and follow you at.
Well, first I want to invite everyone to, again, take advantage of the 1 month free that I'm offering everybody. So that for me feels more important than following me on Instagram. But I would rather, if you go to dose.daybreaker.com, or just daybreaker.com, and maybe you can share that as well. But dose.daybreaker.com. And I'm going to send you a code. What do you want the code to be? Mamas? We'll do code Mamas.
Yeah.
And that'll give you a 1 month free on the platform to practice joy with us. I teach a bunch of classes on there as well. And it's a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing you on there, Elizabeth, and everybody listening too. And then you can follow me at love.radha, love.radha on Instagram. And I share a bunch of joy practices there as well. One of which is like walking my pigs around my farm.
Awesome. Yeah. How fun. I just want to thank you again for coming on and for this conversation. Like I said, I know that I really needed to hear it, because I need to stop making excuses. Because then I make excuses about my excuses, right? Then I'm making excuses. I'm like, yeah, but I'm tired and I'm pregnant and I'm whatever. But I don't have any friends here and I don't, you know what I mean? It just like is excuse after excuse. And it's like, just stop.
You can make friends in 2 seconds. You're so congenial and amazing. Like it's just about you getting out of your own head and start calling them in. Like if you say, this is the type of friend I want, write it down. I swear that happened to me. And all of a sudden, these people start appearing in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, And then you just start pulling them in. And then you have to nurture and water that garden. You have to start following up and saying, hey, I'd love to go out for dinner. I'd love to have you over. I'd love to meet up for tea or coffee. And it's on you. It's not on them to follow up with you. It's on you. I built my own tribe. It's on each and every one of us to be the courageous human and build our own tribe. Otherwise, it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I loved what you said earlier about you find joy in sharing your ability with your community. And I think that that's where a lot of people shy away too, because I truly believe we're each born with passions and abilities for a reason, right? Like you're born with this part that you want to share. But we shy away from that so much. But when you actually step into that, there's so much joy in it. Like you're meant to share your abilities, not to shy away from them. So I think that was something that really spoke to me that you said as well, was just in your community, you're able to show up in that and to share it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I just want to thank you again so much for coming on. I'm so grateful for her coming on. I needed that. I needed to just have this conversation about joy with somebody and to recognize that I can kind of take some of that control back in my life. And ever since we recorded this podcast, like I said, it was a few weeks ago, more than that, probably 5-6 weeks ago. She made the comment, you need an friend. And she was saying, you have to do things. You can't just stay home. And that was really hard for me. Like I kept telling myself I am a homebody. Like I don't maybe want to go do things or, I just want friends that can come over and hang out in their sweatpants and whatever. But since this podcast, I started saying yes to things, and I've been out to dinner a few times and hung out with friends a couple of times. And the other night, Vito and I went out to a friend's birthday party, and then we had a cousin's birthday party. And I realized at the end of that night that my cup was just full. Like I felt, I don't know, like for a long time, I felt a lot of social gatherings to be draining. And still now there are some that I do, but I went in with a different perspective. And at the end, I felt my cup was full. And it was just really good for me to hear this and to get out. So if this is the message that you needed, I hope that you can put this joy in your life somewhere, and definitely check out Daybreakers, get a month free with the code MAMAS, and make sure that you try it out, check it out. I know I'm going to be too, and I'll definitely report back to you guys about it, and to see the changes or the opportunities in it that are there. If you missed last week, make sure that you go back and listen to how to create, if you're decorating a nursery or a bedroom, just to make small changes to be more non-toxic and cruelty-free. I learned a lot in that episode. I just ordered a new pillow. I'm so excited to get it because now I have to throw mine away after that interview. And then next week on the podcast, we have on Britta, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear from her. She is a pediatric physical therapist, and we talk about milestones, tips for parents. She's just really big on progress through play, and she gives us so much information. And it's just such a great episode. So make sure you're staying tuned. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure that you subscribe, that you let us know what episodes you are loving, and to let me know what you want to hear. Always reach out to me. And just so you know, when you reach out to me and hey, you should get this person on and do this topic, sometimes with the topic, it's like hard to find the right person to speak to it. So I have like a list of topics, and I'm like searching for the right person to speak to it. And then there are people that you guys tell me to bring on the podcast that I reach out to that I don't ever hear back from. So I'm always grateful for the people that say yes and take the time and energy and commitment to come on the podcast and share with me and with you. It means so much to me. So thank you so much for reaching out, letting me know what you want to hear. And I hope you had a great time with family last week, and stay tuned for this next week's episode. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies, and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.